The fame monster. I don't know about you, but I find it really embarrassing when I have to do something that I really suck at. I kind of admire someone who's really bad at singing but does it anyway, or dancing. I'm not just talking about doing these things on your own in your own home. I'm talking about being brave enough to go out there and do it in public, even though you're completely crap at it. I'm sure we all know someone who loves singing karaoke but sounds like Marge Simpson.
La 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 la.
Or who loves dancing but looks like one of those car dealership inflatable thingies. Yeah, someone thought that idea up. I just can't bring myself to do that. Well, maybe after a few drinks. Why do they do it? Because they enjoy it. Because it brings them some pleasure and enjoyment. They don't do it to entertain someone else. At least I don't think so. They don't do it to get noticed. Well, some might. But I think for many people it's just for the sake of something I've heard people talk about, something called fun, apparently. For me, though, it's kind of like a little death. And no, I don't mean that in the French la petite mort sense. Look it up if you don't know what that's referring to. I'll sing when no one's listening, and sometimes I'll dance when no one's watching. But I won't dance as if no one's watching when they bloody well are. Again, unless maybe I've had a bit too much to drink. My inhibitions are pretty solid otherwise. I should also add, though, that I get just as embarrassed when I do something well, at least if it draws attention to me. I often think about people who become famous, particularly in the music or screen world. A writer can become famous without anyone actually knowing what they look like. I suppose, in theory, a musical artist could do that too if they never let themselves be photographed or never make music videos. Certainly not a screen celebrity. Particularly in music and screen, success and fame seem to go hand in hand. How do you measure success as a musician if it's not in terms of how many people are listening to your music? It's possible that someone begins writing and singing music for the simple pleasure of it, like our Marge Simpson friend. It's just a form of self-expression, not necessarily expressed to someone else. It's a bit like a personal journal, only in musical form. We don't keep a journal because we want other people to read it. We would, in fact, die at the thought. But I doubt that this is true of most people who embark on a career in music or writing. And it's obviously not true of someone who becomes a stage or screen actor. Clearly they want to be seen. Being seen somehow completes the performance in a way that may not be true of music or writing. But then again, maybe it is true of these other things as well, at least to some extent. I suspect that most people who write or perform music, particularly those who write their own music, but possibly even those who perform songs written by other people, they want their music to be experienced by others. They're seeking to communicate something. Maybe it's something about the world out there, or maybe it's something about the world in here. This may be targeted only at a particular group of people. For example, I've edited several memoirs for people whose only target audience was their immediate family. They want to preserve a story of their own life and perhaps the lives of those who've gone before them for their children, for future generations. Others, however, would probably acknowledge that they would like as many people as possible to hear their story, their message, whether that's in verbal form or musical form. They want their message to be heard. They also want their expression of that message to be valued, to be validated. Now, I acknowledge the possibility that some people embark on a musical or writing career simply to make money. They're producing a commodity for sale. And many more would probably hope they could at least earn a livable income from their art. There's nothing at all wrong with this. But at least in the latter case, I would suggest that the artistic, creative impulse comes first. I'm also sure that for some people, not making art is simply not an option, whether it earns them money or renown or not, even if it kills them. I doubt, for instance, that Van Gogh could ever not have painted. Many writers that I've worked with express the sentiment that they couldn't not write. That was never quite the case with me. I wrote until I felt that I really didn't have anything new or interesting to say. Anything after that point would have just felt like writing for the sake of it. In a way, what I'm doing here is an extension of my writing in a different direction. In fact, it's an extension of several previous streams of my life history. Do people embark upon a career in the arts, particularly music and screen, to become famous? Maybe some actually do, these days in particular. Fame's always been there, at least for many centuries. There've always been celebrities. Charles Dickens in his day was a celebrity. But celebrity is so much more visible to us today. We see into the intimate lives of our celebrities, or at least we believe that we do. People feel they have a personal relationship with their idols and that they're even known in some way by their idols. They also observe, of course, what they appear to be the positive aspects of being a celebrity, and they think, I want a slice of that. Or perhaps they think somewhat less narcissistically, I want to be as good at doing that as they are. Of course, there's a huge downside to the level of celebrity that some people enjoy. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want that. But I don't think people who have made it would necessarily give up all those benefits just because of those costs. I think one of the costs that comes with this kind of celebrity is the demand not only to keep producing quality output, but to produce output that gets better and better all the time. In the documentary Miss Americana, Taylor Swift sits down with her team to discuss her next project. And she makes the observation that whatever she does has to be bigger and better than anything she's done before. If not, it would be viewed as a failure. That's a terrible burden to bear, to live up to your own reputation and beyond it. And I'm not sure it's really conducive to creativity either. People in the music industry often speak with trepidation of an artist's sophomore album, especially if their debut album was a huge success. The pressure is on not only to make a second album as good, but better than its predecessor. This is part of our society's obsession with growth, which operates in the economic realm too. Something is only successful if it's growing. But even that's not enough. It has to keep growing faster and faster. Yet the truth is that many artists produce their best work early on, maybe even their first work, and they can never live up to that. I remember a BBC programme which asked the public to vote on their favourite Elton John song. It turned out that the public's favourite was Your Song, which was Elton's first international top 10 hit. Upon hearing this result, Elton remarked laconically, I guess I peaked early. In a very real way, making these videos is my own creative outlet these days. It's a great way for me to gather my thoughts. Since I started doing them, I've spent way more time researching various questions, not to an academic level, maybe not always even to a highly competent level, but at least to the point where I felt I had something to say on the subject. By far the most difficult and time-consuming part of this process is thinking of something to talk about. I think the amount of time I spend on that probably exceeds the time that I spend on actually researching the topic. A lot of apparently unproductive time is spent simply looking for a topic. Sometimes it just throws itself at me, but most often not. At least not since about video number 50 or so. By the time I post this video, it will be number 200 or something like that. Once I have a topic in mind, the research comes fairly easily. I know that one of the problems I had with writing another book was that I simply couldn't think of something to write about. I made lots of false starts, but it never really went anywhere. As I mentioned earlier, this process, the process of making these videos, brings together several streams of my earlier lives. Writing, public speaking, science, theology, philosophy, to name just a few. Now that I'm really ancient, I have quite a few streams to tap into. But I'm glad to say that I'm probably learning more at the present time and about a wider range of topics than at any time in my life, except perhaps my mid to late teens. This has to be of some use in slowing down the ravages of time, right? You may find this hard to believe, but I don't do this in order to generate viewers or followers. Of course, if something I say resonates with other people, that gives me a bit of a buzz. But some of my favourite videos have received hardly any viewings. I wouldn't not have made them, though, if I knew this ahead of time. And it won't stop me from making similarly unpopular videos in the future. Some of my most popular videos have been those where I look at a particular song or musical performance. I don't kid myself into thinking they're popular because of anything I've said or done, though. They're popular because of the song or the artist I'm talking about. My most viewed video is the one I did on the song Pisces by the Ukrainian core metal band Ginger. Though that's totally down to them, not to me. I'm just riding on their coattails. If I do stop making these videos at some time in the future, it won't be because no one's watching them. It will be because I've run out of things to say.